It's Swipe versus Gripe. Could Jokic have helped more on the final possession? Who really messed up on the play versus the Blazers? Does it matter since they were down to, the Blazers? How does a LaVine trade help this team? Can the Nuggets help themselves? And can we chill out a little bit? It's just one loss. All that and more here on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day, being with us every day, Monday through Friday. We have shows for you all throughout the week. We'll have shows for you on the weekend for the game recaps, and we will have coverage for you of every single piece of Nuggets news that breaks. If there's a trade, you can bet on an emergency episode here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I host two Substacks, Hardwood Paroxysm and the Denver Dig, covering your Denver Nuggets. I'm joined by Swipa. You can find him on Twitter and on YouTube at SwipaCam. He comes to you after every Nuggets game with his thoughts. He's on Players Club. He's on everything. It's Players Choice, yes?
Players Choice.
I apologize.
Players Club is a movie about Atlanta.
That's true. Players Choice. I apologize. On today's show, we're going to talk about, people are freaking out over this loss, and they're freaking out over every loss. Are they right? Why does it feel like something's broken with the Nuggets when they're actually above 500? We're going to talk about the trade situation and whether or not that's going to fix this team. I really want to get Swipa's thoughts on that, given his particular issues with the backup center position. But we'll start with this, Swipa. So that final possession last night, and look, you shouldn't be down to the Blazers. You shouldn't have been chasing the whole game. You should have rebounded better. They've got all sorts of issues with this game. They didn't play well. They had a chance on the final possession to get a stop and force overtime, and they couldn't do it. Russell Westbrook allows a blow-by Anthony Simons to Westbrook's left, Simon going right. Jamal Murray is late on the help that Jokic is calling for. Jokic doesn't rotate over. Gordon doesn't squeeze from the corner. Without having talked to the staff, which I very much would today, I would love to know what they wanted to do there. What are your thoughts on that final play defensively?
Yeah, I think it was a schematic breakdown. Two things. I think that Russ should have stayed in front of better. He opened up the door to get the steal. He's done that a couple times. I did note earlier on another show that he did that versus the Wizards as well. He just tends to open up that direction because I think of athleticism allows him to recover. I also think that Jokic should have rotated over. I think that he should have been able to contest in better position there. He was more concerned about the lob in that instance, even though Michael Porter Jr. crashed down. So I think he made a mistake there. I think Aaron Gordon could have done a better job squeezing. I think Jamal Murray, I think they could have pushed Anthony Simons more towards the middle of the floor because there would have been three defenders sitting there, and then they can rotate, do what they need to do. Overall, it was just a total loss of a play. I think Jokic obviously bears a lot of the responsibility because he is the rim protector. He's the interior defender. And I think that's kind of how the conversation kind of moved to this point that Joker should have been in a better position to do that. So I think that I will also accept that he should have been able to do that more. And I also think Russ could have stayed in front better.
Good on you for accountability on that play. Good on you. It doesn't change that Jokic was amazing.
I can't take accountability for somebody else.
No, but that's good though in terms of if you're a fan and you're not going to just I think it's very easy to just be like, what more do you expect Jokic to do? Look at his points, rebounds, and assists. And it's look, we're talking about this possession on this play. Guys have responsibilities, and it's it doesn't mean that Jokic is a fraud. It doesn't mean that Jokic isn't the best in the world. It just means on this particular play, he didn't do what he needed to do, and that contributed on top of Westbrook not shading him to Simons' left, to him getting that shot off. It was also just a great shot by Simon. It was a really great drive by Anthony Simon and a really great finish.
Yeah. Look, I think that we kind of reached a flex point with all this stuff. Matt, you're not as plugged into the MVP stuff, obviously, consistently. Joking, obviously. The Tim Bonington poll just came out. The NBA.com MVP ranking just came out. I think this is another loss to a below 500 team, which is the third. Is that just three? Because they got the Pelicans, they have the Wizards, and then now they have this loss, and almost had the loss to the Raptors as well, and almost had the loss to the Nets. So these have just been tight games, 2 outright losses. So I think if you just put all that together, I think that's why people are just feeling the way they are about where the team is. Last year, did they lose 3 games to below 500 teams last year? Because I know you kept track of that stuff really well. So the feeling, I think, feels different. And especially, Matt, that second quarter they got back in the game, but that third quarter, the effort, like the connectivity. Now the Blazers got hot from 3. Anthony Simons makes that last step back LaMelo style 3, almost like a one-legged. They look disconnected, and obviously when you're trying to stack wins, I mean, Matt, they could have been sitting at 15-10, well positioned, and they continuing to hold on to the 5th seed, move closer to the 4th seed. But yeah, there just seems to be that something's off, and I think people are feeling that. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about kind of the feeling of like why people are pretty upset. I think right now you mentioned the losses to teams under 500. Nuggets last season went 28-2 versus teams under 500. They're 6-3 this season. Losses to the Wizards, the Pelicans, and the Blazers now. So I think it's so like Jeff, the King of Thornton, is in here, and he says, I'm increasingly believing the Athletic article might have had a negative effect on already negative locker room. But they were on a 3-game winning streak. Like, they were playing great. And they lost a game in Portland on the road by 2. Like, I think we're too early to kind of do that. Now, that might be happening, but it also doesn't impact their ability to win. Like, if the locker room is not in a great place, which I don't think it has been this season, I don't think the locker room is where it needs to be. They're not together enough. We've talked about that. It was really funny because, like, in the beginning of the season, when I was like, guys, they are not connected. Like, they got to get this back. They have to bring people back together. And now, honestly, that's not just the players. That is players, coaches, front office. I don't think anybody is together this season. And that's a real problem for them. And they've kind of alluded to that in certain ways. And when I said that, people were like, you idiot, it's just the bench. And I was like, no, like, they have other problems. Like, they lost a game last night, Swipa, where the non-Jokic minutes were positive.
+7, no.
That's crazy. You can't lose to the Blazers when you win the non-Jokic minutes.
Well, I think for the context of that was spearheaded by the 1-2-2 defense. That's when Russ and Murray and Watson, I think, took over the game. Russ especially is making those 3-pointers. Murray started going really, really crazy. DJ, honestly, it was just the rebounding. Like, he had a real effort rebounding the basketball yesterday. I think, did he have 7 rebounds yesterday?
Yep.
So I think that is what it is. I think they just showed a lot of effort, and this is the second straight third quarter that Russ has basically saved for the team, including the Kings game. And there's just something happening where the team, that fight that we even saw last year, to be honest with you, like especially in the clutch and in the fourth quarter, it just is, it's not there consistently so far this year. And again, even versus teams that you're just way more talented than, it's just not showing up enough. And I don't know what exactly it is, but and to be fair, y'all, like, this is like, I don't want to say it's every December, Matt, but this is kind of the December of the Nuggets. They just do this. Like, the championship year, they were a bottom 3 defense by the end of December. And then they peaked out as a top 6 defense, I think, the rest of the year. They ended the season at the 15th ranked defense. The offense started going crazy. They started being engaged. They started caring. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're waiting and they're just like, look, it's not time yet. Like, we don't need to put our foot down until we get to about that point in time. Like, I honestly have no idea what exactly it is, but it's clearly like a very noticeable difference in the level of execution and effort they're putting into every single possession and every quarter. And it almost feels like they either are biding their time or they just don't really believe in what they're doing.
Daniel Miller has made several comments. Are we going to talk about Malone's future? So they're 14-11. I said before the season, if they started out 5-12, Malone would be fired. They are not 5-12, man. You don't fire a coach when you're 14-11. Like, that's just not like what you do. Like, that's just not how this goes. That is not how this works. So, like, you could be upset with Malone. I don't think he coached a great game yesterday. I don't know what he's got to do to get them to rebound. I think these are all fair questions. Like, we've criticized Malone on the show. We've talked about that. But, like, I also just think on a large level of this is more of an organizational thing. This is not I just don't think it's a coach thing. Maybe a really great rah-rah coach could bring them together in this very tough moment. But you know what? That guy's probably not as good at all the other stuff that Michael Malone does. So I think that
Do you think there are shortcomings that is showing up now that would be fixed by maybe, let's say, Missoula, for instance, like a different kind of coach with a different kind of personality?
That's an interesting question. I don't like Missoula's not a rah-rah guy either. Like he's not like a high effort guy. He has that team has always been consistently high effort. That's honestly like a real credit to Jason Tatum, who some people feel is in the MVP conversation. Like Tatum is a guy that really has like set like a very high level of every single year. Like his teams play hard and like he sets that kind of standard. They don't ever have effort issues in Boston. I don't necessarily think that's Missoula. A better X's and O's mind doesn't really fix what's ailing this team. Do I think the X's and O's are great? I don't. I've said this, that they don't have enough offensive innovation, but I also don't think that that's the problem right now. And so that's the kind of balance that you have to, I think, manage. Let's talk about on the other side. The trades are obviously the big conversation. I will ask you based off of the Blazers game, and let me know in the comments at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. How does the Zach LaVine trade fix what happened last night? We'll talk about that and more on the other side here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pickmas. If you think that Jokic is going to have more than 9.5 rebounds in the next game, what about if you think that Christian Brown's going to hit more than 1 3? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Just download the app and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. We're also brought to you today by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has a solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor's visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. As soon as I did that ad, I was like, oh, thank God Hurricane's not in the chat today. And then there he was. There he was. Well, I'll let you know that we do have a daily newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com for the Locked On Nuggets newsletter. Ryan wrote yesterday about kind of the lack of effort from the Nuggets. We do 10 things off of every Nuggets game throughout the season, as well as you'll get the best of our episodes and more writing from people like Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer. You also, if you do fantasy basketball, it's got tips from Josh Lloyd of Locked On Fantasy Basketball, and he's a whiz. It's amazing how good he is. So make sure you go check out lockedondaily.com. Back here with Swipe Out on Swipe and Gripe on a Friday. People want me to wear a hat next week. Can I wear a hat next week?
I mean, do whatever you want, man. You're a handsome man, married. You're very happy. So just,
Thank you.
Whatever you feel like you need. I feel like you should be real. Sometimes behind the scenes, we'll have a little filibuster time and then we won't air it out. Because, we're like, it's not good for TV. No, it's great for TV. Matt and I had a sharp disagreement.
Oh, yeah.
Off the platform just now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, not like a personal one, obviously. Matt, I'm just of the mindset, I think that if you're just going to play like this, the Nuggets, their defense, is it really, how much of the Nuggets defensive issue is actual personnel and just not care, try hard? Like, even if you don't have the best personnel, you can try hard your way into a top 10 defense in this NBA.
I agree. I agree.
Even in the playoff setting, like, respectfully, like, you don't have to have like the craziest personnel. I think even to the Luka and Kyrie's best benefit, Kyrie will try and he will work on the defensive end, especially in gritting time.
Yep.
I honestly think that like if the Nuggets are just gonna kind of BS their way through this anyway, go get all offense, get Zach LaVine, get whatever, do whatever you got to do, dump it on the offense, get 3 ball handlers or 3 go-to scorers on the floor all at once, 2 in the non-Jokic minutes with Russell Westbrook. You saw the vision yesterday. Russ, Murray, LaVine, no Jokic, go get him, go hunt. And then on the other end, do your best. Literally give maximum effort when it matters most. I just think, man, like they definitely need to make changes, and they clearly, but here's the thing, they feel like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You're not playing hard anyway. So it's not even as if like your scheme is like suffering, like, oh, well, like they're lacking. You're just not playing hard. I don't know what to tell you. Like if you're getting beat to a spot consistently, you're not playing hard. If you're not rotating well, you're not playing hard. If you're not crashing the board and rebounding, you're just not playing hard. I don't know what to tell you. Like rebounding is a skill and it's effort. Go crash. Be physical. Play heavy at the point of attack. Even just watching like Portland or watch the Kings game, how physical did the Kings get in the second half, or really second quarter on with the Denver Nuggets? And their defense was better. Now, not down the stretch because the Nuggets started getting whatever they wanted. But I just think for me, it's just a matter of like, I can manufacture defense. I really can. What I can't manufacture is elite level shot making and people that can continue to put pressure on you time after time after time after time. And again, Matt, everybody knows I was big on Michael Porter when he first got to the Nuggets. I was big on him in the bubble, big on him after. But guess what, Matt? Guess how many points Michael Porter Jr. had in the fourth quarter yesterday?
How many?
0.
That's not many.
Guess what he did in the fourth quarter versus the Kings?
How many?
0.
Not many.
He had 14-11 versus the King on 7 shots yesterday, fourth quarter. And it's because of the fact it's not just the scheme. And again, I'm huge on Porter, y'all. But guess who just got to the Nuggets? Come fourth quarter time, has the ball. Russell Westbrook. Like, for me, that's what it is. He had 2 points on the dunk. Sure, he did. I think this is what it is for me, Matt. They obviously don't trust Porter to dribble the ball and create when the going gets tough. He is a play finisher, and I think that's great. But I do think, Matt, like, Malone obviously trusts ball handlers and trusts people that can force the issue. I just feel like they're kind of like walking this line of like, we love him, but we're just not going to trust him to get him the ball. And if he does, we don't know if he can do anything with it anyway.
Yeah, they do not have confidence in him, and that's often not a rational thing. And we've seen that before with various teams where they just didn't trust certain guys, even though they were good. Just if the team doesn't have confidence in that guy, they collectively will decide like, no, you don't need to do that. Like I think you need it. It's a very un-Jokic thing because I think Jokic has always been like, no, I trust you. Like, you're my teammate. I'm going to trust you to make the play. And he hasn't been able to do that, and I think that that's an issue. But overall, I don't think Mike's been the problem this season.
No, not at all. I think he's been their second most consistent player in large part.
I will say he is the worst defensively among the starters in off-court, on-court defensive rating. They're 4 points worse with him on the floor. The worst is Julian Strawther. They are 10 points worse on defense with Julian on the court. Russ is plus 5.3 because he plays with Julian. Peyton Watson is plus 5.1 because he plays with Julian. I'm not trying. Like, I really like Julian Strawther. That's like my guy on this team, and I think that he's going to have a good career. But like, he's not ready for the role that he's been put into. You talked about the effort thing, so I agree with you that try hard defense will get you very far. And if we look at what's like their biggest problems, rebounding and points in the paint. That comes like, that's not on Christian Brown, and that's not on Jamal Murray, and that's not even really on, it's a little bit on MPJ. That's on your backside rotations, and that's on Nikola, and that's on Aaron. Aaron in particular, like, this is what Aaron's been tasked with. Now, the numbers will say that when Aaron's on the floor, the defense is better, and I believe that because I think that Aaron has been still, his floor is very high. I just don't think that Aaron is every single night able to go locked in 100%. And I think
smaller teams, guards, yeah.
And I think that that's probably a combination of his body, which he's just been banged up. He's played a lot of games over the last 3 seasons, and he's had some of these injuries. I just, look, this is a human context thing, and I just want to just be very clear on this. I am going to be very hesitant to be harsh on Aaron Gordon because of the death of his brother. I'm just being real with you. Like, that is not a thing that I'm like, not going to be like, well, sorry, I don't have the capacity in me as a human to ignore that. What he's gone through with that. And so I don't like Aaron will tell you like that's got nothing to do with it. I know Aaron would say that, but that's a reason why I'm always going to be a little bit more hesitant because of anybody, like he's the guy that I want to give the most empathetic benefit of the doubt to. But this is where I do think some of the personnel stuff comes in. I do think they need another wing defender, and I do think they need another big. And I just think that would help. The question is like, I think that shaking up the team probably helped some stuff. Those in the comments that think that Malone should be fired, I think firing Malone probably does spark something. I don't think it long-term is the solution because I think you eventually get to a point where you're like, uh-oh, this is not the guy. You know Malone is a guy. You won a title with him. You could say he wasn't the reason they won the title, and I don't think anybody thinks that. Everybody knows it was Yoke. You can't say that Malone kept them from winning a title. Can't say that.
Well, Malone helped them, clearly.
Yeah. So, for me, it's about, I still think that a trade helps. Mark Stein kind of wrote about this, about how, I also want to comment on this. This is not from the Nuggets. I talked to some people around the league this morning, and I did want to talk about this on the show. Swipe. There is a feeling that they are using Chicago as a leveraging point against Atlanta. That Chicago is Arturis doing them a solid and being like, yeah, we've talked about LaVine, and applying that pressure to try and because that's how you do this is you create a market for a player and then you use that to leverage against the other way. Because Stein wrote this morning about kind of the conversation that he mentioned Bogdanovich. I don't think Atlanta's going to give up Bogey. I just don't. That's my opinion. It's not based off of reporting. It's an educated opinion based off of what I've heard and looking at their situation and comments said. I don't think they'll give up Bogey. I think they would give up DeAndre Hunter and Okongwu. And honestly, if you do that deal, a lot of people are going to be like, you give up Michael Porter Jr. for DeAndre Hunter and Onyeka Okongwu? But it's like, yeah, because those guys address what they need more. You're taking Michael Porter Jr. and you're breaking him into two pieces of rebounding and 3-point shooting
and
with
defense.
and defense with better effort in there.
And apparently Wemby dunk on you capabilities for DeAndre Hunter.
I missed this play. Was that last night?
Did you see him dunk? Yeah, he banged on Wemby for the game, like banged on him. Hunter's having like his best season of his career right now.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been really good.
So, but let me. Well, go ahead, Matt.
MacMan says, why would Atlanta make that trade? It's about. So the Nuggets need to diversify their assets. Atlanta needs to consolidate them.
Yeah, they have way too many wings. Yeah, they have a few wings, bigs, young players. I do have some more questions for you, but we can get that on the other side if you want to.
All right, we'll hit those questions. Plus, we'll talk about whether or not this 2-game losing streak is like, is it a disaster? Are they fine? Are we overreacting? Why does it feel like this? We'll talk more about that on the other side here on Locked On Nuggets. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. What a great place to bet on the NFL playoffs. There's going to be so many teams in the NFL playoffs. And some of them, like, I think the Chargers are very likely to make the playoffs. That's such a great story for them. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play data, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets so you can get on live betting games, like when a team leads at the half and then suddenly at the end is not leading anymore. You can bet the other team to win on a Thursday night. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can bet on things like interceptions and under on quarterbacks if they're, a rookie that's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets.
Pretty sure Justin Herbert's the one that threw that.
Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys back with us on a Friday for Swipe and Gripe. You had a question for me when we were going to break.
Do you think that this is salvageable in totality? Because there's clearly like several layers of things happening. Now, basketball is not linear. Jamal Murray's been playing way better, by the way, the last 9 or 10 games, really last 7 games especially. Like, he is clearly rounding into his normal regular season form. But the Nuggets lost yesterday. They lost to the Wizards. They lost to the Pelicans. There's a lot of smoke. The team is in the midst of trade talks. They clearly need to make adjustments. At least in 2022, when their defense got better, it's like Brown and KCP were there, and then they started locking in. Do you think that right now things are salvageable, or are you just at this point like Jokic is having this amazing year, got that title, but they're honestly just going to be waffling like this probably the rest of the year for multiple different reasons?
The fact that this stuff is more ephemeral than it is literal, like everyone was just focused on the bench to start the season, but the problems have kind of expanded beyond that. That actually makes me more confident they can fix it. Jokic shouldn't be -5 versus the Portland Trailblazers. And if he's not -5, they win this game. So that to me is like an indicator of kind of like where we're at. There are so many trades that can potentially happen that would reshape a lot of these conversations. Imagine a deal with the Toronto Raptors for Michael Porter Jr. and getting back Bruce Brown and getting, I'm not sure who else would come along.
Ochai Agbaji, Kelly Olynyk, let's go.
Yeah. So like that kind of a deal reshapes you and gives you a new kind of identity and resparks things. Like Bruce's presence in the locker room alone would probably really help. But even if they don't do a trade, they can come together. They can have that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do. This is how I feel personally. I feel from my opinion, I think Jokic is like, I can't burn all of we got to come together guys in December.
Yeah.
So we just got to survive this because we can't burn through the early season. We just got to make it. And then I can pull everybody together in January, February, March and get us to a place where we need to be. They're still above water. And even though the Western Conference is so good, and I will put the Mavericks and the Grizzlies and the Thunder above them, Phoenix is going to have to show me they can pull out this defensive spiral that they're in before I buy back in on Phoenix. Ryan Blackburn will be happy to see that. Like Denver's at 14-11. They've played a ton of games. Other teams haven't played as many. They are 2 games back of Memphis in the loss column. That's it. You're just 2 games back of Memphis in the loss column. You're 2 games back of Houston. You're 1 game back of Dallas. They're still, for as bad as it feels, they're right there. And that doesn't mean that the bad feeling isn't real. It is. But this season, I tried to prepare Nuggets fans. I was like, this is going to be tough. This is not going to be a fun season. It's going to be brutal. And it has been. I think personnel moves will raise their margin for error versus teams like the Blazers and the Wizards and the Pelicans. I think a move would raise that margin of error for them. Do you think a similar move when the Gafford and PJ ended up in Dallas and they kind of broke up their salaries that way? And then do you think that if they made like kind of that kind of acquisition, like is there an acquisition out there that you would think would reposition them in totality? Because really the defensive grit would just be different. That's kind of what Gafford and Lively plus Gafford plus PJ kind of led to that. And obviously Najee Marshall now. Do you think that is kind of one of there's something out there that can help to realign them to that degree? I think you need the Clippers to go off the rails, because if the Clippers went off the rails, they could get your guy. I fundamentally think Chris Dunn changes a lot.
Have you watched how he's played this year, my brother?
So good, man. He's so good, bro. He's so good. Like, I loved him last year. He's so good,
bro. He's bigger than people realize too, man.
And I'm just like, I don't like saying I'm proud of a player because it's patronizing, but I'm just so happy that this guy worked so hard for a league that told him that there wasn't a place. And he was like, I'm going to work my way back in by being elite defensively. Dunn is phenomenal. VV says, swipe that you can't stand me. Is that true?
No. Well, that's why I sit down every time we do our shows. Matt doesn't talk to me in public, by the way. Like I'll talk to him and he'll like, be off like, tattling away on his computer and chiming. And then him and Adam Mares had him, their little buddy, good cop, bad cop relationship.
Tell me you're
and
in
all
town.
that stuff.
You didn't tell me you're in town.
I'm just kidding. We were actually supposed to get food one time, and then Matt bailed on me, but it's all good. It's all good.
It's having kids is hard.
Yeah,
for the
children will do that. Yes,
children will do that. So I think, I'll ask you the same question. Like, do you think that there's a trade out there that fundamentally reshapes their identity?
I'm not going to lie to you, Matt, and I dead mean this. They have never had a player like LaVine in their building. Just simply have never had like that level of explosion and that level of a shot. Now, I'm talking about Jamal was like that when he was young, but he wasn't like as polished as he is now. I truly think, and again, I know dream scenario, if in this situation, if they came back with LaVine and Io, or LaVine for you and Jalen, or if they got back DeAndre Hunter and Bogey, DeAndre Hunter and Okongwu, if they got back Cam Johnson and they get Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't know what another trade out there that would kind of be a filler like that. But if you told me they got back pieces that are like, they're either offensively like a just different kind of player, like if LaVine attacks the rim with a level of physicality that I think would be very much has been out of this building. And then plus with the shooting. And then, or they got like a defensive ace that like is legitimately a really good defensive player, just not the level of shooter Porter is, but like can attack and get to the rim. Then yeah, I just think like, I think that would change the culture a little bit. Cause I think Joker, to your point, Gilbert Arenas had a conversation about like, is Joker the leader of the team? Like, all this other stuff. I'm saying, yeah, everything I've heard he is. The problem is that Joker is already doing so much. I think to your point, it's just like not getting rid of all of his social equity right away. And he just kind of has to like go through the daily process. That's how he works. Just day to day, day to day, day to day, day to day.
Yeah, Jokic is a lead by example guy.
Right.
And I asked Ty Lue this, and I thought his answer was really interesting earlier this season. I think you're right about this. Because he was like, I was like, does it have to be one of your leaders, like, or best players to lead by, like, does that help rather than being loud? And
Right.
he was like, it has to be. He's like,
Right.
Otherwise it's just talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's like a really unique perspective that I hadn't really thought about, because I think of leadership as very much being that guy that goes around and talks to everybody. Like Dame to me was the best leader in the league for years and years, because on Portland, like he got everybody on the same page. He made sure Nurk was like locked in and connected. He made sure that CJ didn't feel like he was being overshadowed. Like he did all that work, right? And I don't think Yoke's necessarily built like that. He doesn't have to be. But I do think that you need somebody to kind of take that kind of role. I don't know if Zach's that guy either. And I don't know what to do kind of about that. But I will say, when everything works together, because like they had so many good veterans, right? It was Bruce Brown and KCP and Jamal and Aaron and Jeff. You had those guys. So Jokic didn't need to do that.
Right.
I understand that wanting to defend Jokic, because it's like, what more do you want him to do, man? Look at the numbers. I get it. I understand. I'm just saying that if Jokic isn't going to do it, you got to have a guy who's not as good as Jokic, but as good as like Paul George, like that level of player, to be the voice, and they don't have it right now.
Well, and that's the KYP for me. I think that's where Booth, I think, had a short sighting, is that you signed all these rookies and got away with all these vets, and you need veterans in locker rooms like this, especially if you have a guy in a quieter, like Joker's he's vocal, but he's not demonstratively vocal. That's just not the way his personality is. I think Russ is, and I think Russ is having a tangible effect on the team, but to me, there's just several different things, man. Like I think, KCP in the huddle, KCP in the locker room, Jeff Green in the huddle, Jeff Green in the locker room, DeAndre Jordan, and Ish Smith. That's 4 30-plus-year-olds. And 2 of them were contributing. And then on top of obviously Bruce and all that, like I just think that like they just don't have that part of their locker room. And I feel like you can feel that. And I think the young guys are trying to figure out their way. But yeah, I do think there needs to be a change. I think there will be.
I want to comment on this. Robert says, not to harp on it again, but Jamal's lack of professionalism sends a poor message to the young guys on this team. It's hard to find a trade that fixes that glaring issue. On the one hand, I get you, and I'm not going to act like the first month of the season didn't happen. On the other, I think we've moved past like it's Jamal. Everything's on Jamal. Why isn't Jamal? It's Jamal. If Jamal, the only way to fix this is Jamal. Like Jamal had 24 and 10 last night. Jamal's been putting up points. Jamal's been doing his thing again.
Playing good defense too for the most part. Yeah.
And they lost to the Blazers. So like, I think Jamal was an issue early. I think Jamal's playing really well right now, and everybody needs to get off his back and realize like, oh, maybe there's a collective issue that's got to get fixed. And that to me is the challenge for Denver. All right, that's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets for a Friday. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back with you for the next Nuggets game for post-game, as well as on Sunday night. We'll have No Jinx with me and Ryan. Thanks for joining us. Hey, I'm dead serious. After every single Nuggets game, Swipa goes live almost immediately. And his reactions, I think, are some of the best and strongest takes because he's so passionate and he's really locked in on these things. So go follow Swipa on all those platforms and check out his work as well. We'll see you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.